So are we live now?
Well, hold on.
Yep, we're live.
We're live now?
Yep.
You might want to close the door. Just
all right.
Yeah, just make sure the kids don't come out.
Cool. Yeah, we're pretty good.
Okay, guys. Time for shh. All right, they know how to open that door anyway. For a second.
Hey, what's up? How's everybody doing? This is the portion where I usually build an audience because nobody watches in the beginning. Well, people watch in the beginning, but it takes Facebook forever, especially if you don't have a signal.
Oh, that's the mic. Cool.
Yeah. At first I was like, what am I going to do? Then I realized that mic is actually really, really good.
Wow.
So, how's everybody doing? Wow. Okay, cool. People getting out early. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. If you all would please like and share and all that cool stuff that we normally do. This is going to be a very, very casual video, but it's probably a video that's long overdue.
Hey, Nico, is this on your page or is this on the other one?
It's on my public page.
Okay.
I mean, I think I shared it to my page too.
Let me see here.
But yeah, it's something that's long overdue.
Oh. Ooh, that's weird. I'm seeing myself on the phone.
Okay. Now you're tripping me out a little bit.
God, that's never...
Stay off the.
I'm trying to
feed
share
on
his
this one.
post.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it freaks me out too. Whenever I hear myself say something.
Okay.
At least we know
like
we sound
I said.
good.
All right.
We're about to have to ban Liz from the wine already. We just
So they had I went to Publix this evening because we had no food in the house.
Mm.
I wonder why.
Because y'all haven't been home?
Yeah. And, they had a sale, 2 bottles of wine for $10. And you know, it's not that bad. Would you like some?
I mean, I'm always down for wine.
He's already got a beer in front of him, so
Yeah, we'll switch to the wine
we can figure that out at some point.
Oh man. Oh wow, okay. You all here already. Oh. We're waiting. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, first of all, for those of you who don't know who this lovely couple is, this is Jared H. Beck. This is Elizabeth Lee Beck. And they are both superstar lawyers and the founders of Beck & Lee Law Firm. For those of you who don't know, this is the law firm that is in charge of the DNC fraud suit that you all have been hearing so much about over the last couple of days and hopefully over the last year. I'm about to hear myself. It's going weird. Freak me out. But today we're going to kind of have a very casual conversation, like I said, a long overdue conversation just about how we met. You know, why we met, why we're still good friends, and how we came up with the DNC suit. We're going to try to cover all the bases because a lot of people have been asking, you know, how do we know each other? How did I get involved with the suit? Yep. You know, did I live in Miami beforehand? That's actually a pretty funny story too. But I'll let them introduce themselves right now. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll pick it up from there, Nico. I mean, because I think it's an important part of the story that needs to get out there, because we have a mainstream media blackout going on right now around the DNC fraud lawsuit, as all of you are probably aware. You know, this is like deja vu, right? I mean, we saw the same thing during the Bernie Sanders campaign, and you know, it's just the same thing going on, except now we're talking about the lawsuit, or actually we're not talking about the lawsuit, and the mainstream media is not talking about it. But that's okay, because we've got, you know, we're in the social media age, we're in the alternative media age, so we can all get the word out there, and that's what we're doing right now. And I think an important part of the story is the story that's really not been told yet anywhere, or at least not in extensive detail, and that's the story of how this lawsuit got off the ground. And the gentleman sitting to my left, Niko House, is a big part of that background. As many of you know, I'm sure all of you that are part of Niko's regular audience know that he was involved extensively in the Bernie Sanders campaign at the grassroots level as the head of Carolina Students for Bernie. When did you get involved, Nico? Was it September of 2015?
Oh no.
Okay.
I got I created the club in May of 2015.
Okay, so this
and
is
spent the whole summer building.
This is like pioneer burner territory right here. I mean, this is getting in on the ground floor of the Bernie Sanders revolution, and maybe just for sake of filling out the background, maybe you could explain like what in a nutshell led you into the Bernie Sanders campaign and what got you involved, because I think that's an important part of the background here.
So for those of you who didn't know, I majored in political science while I was at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I did not major in political science because I had any intention on getting into politics. I actually despise politics. When I did debate in high school, I was very good at debate, mostly because it was very common sense stuff to me. I thought that a lot of, like I said, when I was in high school, the war in Iraq at 14 or 15 years old to me seemed like it was the stupidest idea that any person could ever have, let alone the president. And because of that, I wanted to stay away from politics, but I always wanted to educate myself in politics, because those who are not educated about politics usually are the first ones to fall victim to political policies because you simply just don't know. Like right now, a lot of Floridians are thinking like, oh yeah, medicinal marijuana is legal here now, right? Because there was an addendum passed. Most of them don't know, however, that it's just chilling right now in congressional limbo. And so there are a lot of people out there who are probably sitting there on their butts waiting, to get their prescription, to go to the doctor and waiting to hear back about their medical marijuana prescription. They're not going to be getting it anytime soon until people fight for it. But just my upbringing and my personal background kind of made me feel like I don't want my future kids to deal with this. I don't want my family to have to deal with the ramifications of being politically ignorant. And I want to be kind of like be that change. I didn't ever plan on becoming like a career politician, a political consultant, none of that. And so I did debate again in college, and a friend of mine, a colleague, kind of said, hey man, we need somebody to be the president of Carolina Students for Bernie Sanders in North Carolina. And I was like, about that, first of all, I think that Hillary Clinton's supposed to like just destroy anybody who steps to her, correct? So you're gonna have to do a pretty good job of convincing me that this guy can win. I had no idea who Bernie Sanders was at the time, and I'm being very honest with zero idea who this man was. And the first time I looked him up, it wasn't looking good, but then he was like, look, just watch the video. Just watch a video about him. And I said, okay, man, I watched the video. And I watched the video. It was about a 3-minute interview. And I was like, oh, this guy can't be real. So I started looking up. And y'all, for those of you know how I am. I'm very critical. I'm looking everything up. And the only 2 missteps that I saw were the ones in Gaza when he approved the bombing of the Gaza Strip, which he later reneged on. And then that was pretty much, I think that was pretty much it for the most part. And I was like, okay, well, I'll start the club, just didn't think it would be that big of a deal. I was like, if anything, it'll get people more politically involved. It's always good to back a progressive. It doesn't have to be anything serious. I thought it was going to be like a little club that I just started. It's going to be 40 or 50 people maximum. Oh, didn't happen like that. We built the club up over the summer. We had our what do we call it? Fall. It's like a fall festival in UNC. We started signing people up for the club. And good God, the first night we had close to 400 signatures. By the time we established the club, we had about 200 to 250 members. Wow. And then a week or 2 after that, Bernie Sanders announced that he was going to come to Greensboro. And these people that we had just signed up, they just started class. A few of them had cars, but Bernie called us and said, hey, we really need your help organizing this event. And he also agreed that we should have a meeting, because he was just very impressed about how we were able to galvanize so many students so quickly, and we had established our club well before any other Bernie, including the community organizations. We established our club before anybody even knew who Bernie Sanders was.
So you were feeling the burn about as early as anyone was feeling the burn in this country.
Yeah,
was this in 2015?
Right.
2015.
Yeah. We went over the timeline, which was, May of 2015, and then as the primary campaigns heated up, you were playing a grassroots role in just the grassroots organizing process, and that's when you started discovering things that didn't quite add up and that disturbed you, because and I think this is really an important part of the narrative, but you're not just an activist, you're also a student of political science.
Yeah, absolutely. I am. At this point, I don't know if I'll consider myself a student anymore.
But at the time,
I felt like I was exactly. I felt like I was a student of political science, and I am to an extent. But now I feel like I'm on the other side of that fence.
Right. Because I say that as somebody else who studied political science as an undergraduate, and then I actually was in a graduate program in political science before I went to law school, and I think it's really interesting because the tools that you learn in that discipline allow you to analyze events.
Yes,
and this is
patterns of events.
Patterns of events, and this is sort of an important part of the story as to how.
Some pizza?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's go and get us some pizza.
Yeah. Okay. But as I was saying, important part of how you came to start perceiving things and then putting together patterns, I think it comes from the fact that you were trained in the discipline of political science.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is an important part of the story because it gives you the tools of analysis. But I didn't want to interrupt you there because maybe this, in terms of talking about what you started seeing on the ground, this is where the story starts to get really interesting, and we start to talk about what led us to file the lawsuit against the DNC.
It gets pretty rough. Like when I told you all, so we had the largest club in the country, bar none, wasn't even close. We had I actually had a one-on-one meeting with Bernie Sanders. We had a conversation in the back about why it's important for him to galvanize the South, specifically North Carolina. My team was there. It was just an awesome experience. That's for those of you who don't know, or for those of you who follow my personal profile. That's the picture of me and Bernie Sanders that was taken at that meeting. But essentially at that point, we kind of took a larger role in the North Carolina Bernie Sanders movement. I became the acting director of North Carolina College, just the whole Bernie movement in North Carolina. Just by virtue of we had the largest club, we were already organized, and I was already connected to the campaign. So it wasn't anything that was wasn't official, but it kind of got made official because everything just got started getting directed through me. Because of that though, we created this huge network of people that otherwise would not really have known each other, because there were some people from the NAACP who were heavily into Bernie. Unfortunately, there was also the other side of that fence. So there were some who were heavily into Hillary. People from the African American Caucus. By the way, I'm the youngest member of, technically still, I don't know if I have to renew my registration, but I was the youngest member of the North Carolina African American Caucus as well. And by virtue of that, it came with some responsibility, and I guess it kind of not gaslighted them, but let them know, hey, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. We sat down, they talked to me, and we even made some waves there. I still have a lot of connections, but all those connections ultimately allowed me to see something that nobody else was seeing at the time. Only one other person at the time was seeing, and that's my mentor, who is wise beyond anything I could ever imagine as far as politics is concerned.
Right.
And he just kept telling me what to look out for, what to watch out for, and I started doing my own research into these situations, to people being hired, how things were being conducted. But I kind of kept my distance because people were starting to bring up a certain level of suspicion, and then people were also trying to keep me from networking with certain people within the Bernie Sanders campaign that are actually, progressive. That this is what they do. This is their career, is only campaigning for progressive candidates. And this person, because this person was very successful in New Hampshire, they really wanted her. It was obvious they wanted to suppress her ability to be that helpful in North Carolina. Against Hillary Clinton.
Right. And in fact, you showed up in our office. I want to say it was February, maybe it was March.
It was March. I was on spring break.
Yeah, you were on spring break.
I was on spring break.
You showed up in our office in Miami, and you had evidence with you.
Danny made me film that.
Yeah. And our colleague Danny DeVivo, who's at the time was the director of media for Jam Pack, which was a.
Where's he at now?
Well, he's interestingly he's.
He's not even. He's
we
off.
can get into that. I don't know if I want to go off on a tangent about where Danny is now. But
drink more beer.
I can tell you just because I'm trying to keep things to the background right now, and at the time, Elizabeth and I were involved in our activities through Jam Pack, which was an organization that we formed to support progressive causes, and we were really.
I don't know about that. We just wanted to make a bunch of Bernie videos.
Right, and that's.
I would be definitely supporting a progressive.
Right, and that's specifically that was the specific activity that we were undertaking at the time that Niko came to our office in March of 2016, and so what's interesting is that Niko came to us through Danny DeVivo, who was a very talented filmmaker that I went to school with.
He saw the video of me.
Right, and initially, see, this is what's interesting. Is initially we had conceived this, what Niko was bringing to us as more of an investigative video series, because that's what we were involved in. We were wearing our hats as activists involved with Jam Pack, making videos to support Bernie Sanders. We made what I believe are the first Spanish language videos. To support Bernie Sanders, because if you recall at the time there was this whole narrative being created, a false narrative in the mainstream media that Bernie wasn't connecting to various groups of people, including Hispanics, Latinos, Spanish-speaking people, and being based down here in Miami, we just knew that was completely 100% false, because we knew so many people from those communities who were absolutely fervent Bernie supporters, and they're fervent Bernie supporters to this day. So we just felt that was absolutely false, and so we saw an important thing that we could be doing was to counter the mainstream media false narratives that were going out there every day and were just so ridiculous. So we put out some, what we were hoping would be viral videos that could catch fire in social media and just counter the narrative. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were doing, and Danny had put together a really amazing team of independent filmmakers who helped us with that. And you can view all of our videos on the Jam Pack website, jampack.us, on our YouTube channel. Just to see the work we were doing at the time, Niko came into our office. And essentially, I think you, and I don't know to this day the full details of how exactly.
Oh, the conversation?
How exactly.
Remember, you had come to our office and you had lined up an interview with somebody at US Uncut, right? Remember?
No, this is
before.
You're flashing forward. Oh. We're talking about how he specifically got in contact with Danny.
Yeah.
And maybe Niko can pick it up from here.
Yeah, Danny had messaged me, and we had been in a little bit of contact. He said, "Yeah, man, we want to do a documentary about this." And I'm like,
right.
Okay, but he was like the 30th person who messaged me saying they want to do a documentary about this. So
because you had been putting out your own YouTube content at the time.
Yeah, at that point I had only put out like two main videos.
But you were basically sounding.
But he actually found me off of the very, very, very first video that was on Facebook.
Okay,
that's where he found me from. And so.
And people can see those videos to this day.
Yeah, they're still up there.
Yeah.
They're still up there. And he just was like, "Hey, man, we really want to work together." And he was very persistent. So I'm like, okay, so maybe he's serious. And he's like, hey, are you in Miami? Because I had posted a picture, I think, of me being in Miami.
Right.
And he was like, I have some lawyers who want to meet up with you and discuss the documentary. They would be interested in me. I'm like, now, mind you, that situation at the time is kind of sketchy. Okay, because I had just like the day before received a call threatening me from someone who claimed to be part of Bernie Sanders' campaign, who was not actually a part of Bernie Sanders' campaign. He was trying to threaten my career, and
Was this the one you talked about on one of your videos?
I did talk about it on one of my videos. Yeah. And it was a little. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know these people like that. He was like, it's fine. Just go meet them at some office in Kendall. And I'm like a tourist at this point still. So I'm like, where's Kendall at? That's not Miami. I don't know what that is. But,
we're Miami.
Yeah. And then, I go into the building, and even the building is kind of quiet. Yeah, there's a lot of parking. Yeah, there's a lot of parking that day. Because I think it was on the weekend on top of that. So there's no witnesses. If I die, it's over. I'm dead. I was like, damn, death by lawyers. What a way to go.
Yeah.
But
but it underscores, I think it's important to realize how courageous it was for you to immediately start blowing the whistle on this stuff, because I think what people who are not have never had the opportunity to be involved within a party apparatus, getting involved in organizations, as a campaign is moving ahead. You risk. There are a lot of relationships that you develop.
Yeah.
Okay, and you put those relationships at risk every time you start making noise. Okay, that's how politics has unfolded in this country for a long time. Yeah. And so, it's not just, the decision to come out, as a prominent Bernie Sanders supporter and then start speaking the truth of what you were seeing on the ground, that's an enormous amount of courage. And I think that, that needs to be appreciated.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. For y'all to even reach out to me, because there's a lot, for those of you who were there at the very beginning, you all know that there was a lot of pushback, because what I was saying at the time, this is way before, I want to say almost a year. No, it was a year and some months before WikiLeaks. This is a year and some months before no, this wasn't a year. This was 3 months.
We always see
WikiLeaks is in July, so
you always see things at the local level.
Yeah.
Guccifer was June.
Guccifer was July, the day of the convention.
Guccifer was June. WikiLeaks was July.
No. Guccifer was July, because that's how WikiLeaks got. That's how their algorithm kicked in.
I gotta look at the complaint.
Because remember, we were sitting on we were at the Airbnb, and we were sitting on the. Maybe
that was July.
I need to defer to what's in the complaint.
I can't.
But the important thing is, and let's not skip too much forward, because I want to, for the people watching, I think it's important that we keep things in sort of a chronological.
I can't imagine why anybody would watch us sit around.
There's a
lot of activity going on.
And watch us drink beer.
No, but seriously, this is a very, I don't want to undersell. Look, this is the DNC fraud lawsuit is the only governmental forum that's going on right now, which is seriously discussing issues going to the corruption in our democracy. Okay, so this is a serious thing, and it's very important that the word get about this lawsuit, because we have a mainstream media blackout going on. And so, it's 9 o'clock. Well, I guess it's probably 9:30 on a Sunday night. We all have, so much work to do.
Yeah,
Niko, me, you. But this is part of the work we've got to be doing right now, is getting the word out. So I'm, more than happy to be sitting here on a Sunday night doing this. But I think it's very, very serious stuff.
Who remembers Schoolhouse Rock?
I do remember Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah.
Okay, remember that show where they talk about the separation of powers? I think it was a Schoolhouse Rock episode where they talk about...
What? There was a Schoolhouse Rock episode about separation?
I don't remember that one.
Executive branch.
No, I did not know that. I remember I'm Just a Bill. That's pretty much...
Oh, okay.
I remember that one.
I definitely
okay. But, I don't have as good a memory for Schoolhouse Rock.
So here's the thing, is we have 3 branches of government because there's supposed to be a check on each other.
Right.
So in a way... the case itself is just a fraud case, but if you take a sort of a 10,000-foot view, it's really the practice of the check on powers in practice.
Right.
Really.
Right. This is the judicial branch.
Yes, this is the judicial branch.
Which is
because the way I see the DNC arguments is, as a lot of people have analyzed the hearing transcripts, they said it's basically the DNC's attorney saying we are above the law. You do not have jurisdiction over us.
Right.
This court does not have jurisdiction over the DNC, and so really, to me,
they're trying to shut out the judicial branch.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is insanity.
Yeah.
And so the founding fathers gave us a very, very powerful system of government. That government, I believe, has been compromised in many ways by, you can put it any number of ways, but, we talk about, the politicians not serving the people. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They're serving interests that are not the interests of the people that make up the citizenry of this country.
Oh, so I think that's a good segue into why I answered pretty much why I decided, hey, I'll go and check this out.
And this is back in Kendall
at the law firm.
March of 2015, but
March 2016.
2016.
No, 2016. Yeah.
2016. Sorry.
So I'm like, first of all, I was on spring break, so this is actually Bernie pretty much killed my entire spring break, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially,
spring breaks are overrated.
I felt that I didn't really have any direction to go in at that point in time. Because we know that there was something going up. The details were still sketchy at the time, but we knew we had people. I knew personally that we had people who wanted to go. I knew a lot of people who were calling me that were giving me this crazy amount of information, but we didn't really have any way to move forward with it. Because what was my biggest fear, and which is something that me, Jared, and Liz have talked about frequently, is that the lawsuits were pretty much being pushed to the wayside over and over and over and over and over again. And so we're like, what can we do?
Right.
And then I started, I was taking interviews while I was at the office. And then in the midst of one of these interviews was from actually a colleague in North Carolina who was talking about the fact, he just kept repeating the fact that DNC was incorporated. And I was like, what? The DNC? Which you don't really think of the DNC as a traditional corporation or an LLC, obviously. But because at first I thought there was just no way to hold people accountable, these people accountable. And then when they brought that fact upon us, this is after a couple of days of investigating Hillary Clinton. A lot of crazy stuff happened in between that. Me and Jared, every day pretty much, would sit down for hours and talk about what angle we could do to affect this election. Right. Not just, even if Bernie Sanders had won, what can we do to ensure we never have to deal with this again?
Right. And let me just interject there. Litigation is a marathon process. When a case comes in your door, oftentimes it takes a long time before you're in a position to file a case. So the way I see this case is, we had a political campaign going on. We had, a whistleblower come into our office. Basically, that's how I think of Niko. Coming into our office with evidence that, as he said, I think he used the word sketchy. The way I think about it is, we had things that had appeared, on Twitter, for example. Mm-hmm. That was part of the evidence. We were trying to make connections between various organizations in terms of funding patterns.
Yes. But everybody thinks it's just a one-off,
there's various, but you're trying to put the pieces of the puzzles together, but you only have a couple of the pieces.
Interjection. So because, and it's a little upsetting because we never really got full credit for this, and the whole Hillary Victory Fund story.
Right. I never figured that out.
That story. For those of you who know what the Hillary Victory Fund story is, we found out that the Hillary Victory Fund, which is a super PAC, was funding state Democratic parties, and they were in turn helping out Hillary Clinton and Hillary-esque candidates, which is, by the way, illegal, but they don't care about that. But as most of you know, I think it was Politico got credit for breaking that story. Then TYT gave credit to Politico also. However, It was actually a friend of mine his name was Chris Teleska. This is the details. I mean, we were the ones who broke this story. Chris Teleska was the one who informed me about the Hillary Victory Fund. I actually told Jordan Sheraton a couple of days before the Hillary Victory Fund story actually broke. And he, of course, did give me credit for it. I was in their office when I had the conversation with Jordan Sheraton about the Hillary Victory Fund. Yeah. They would never have known. The mainstream media would have never known about the Hillary Victory Fund if it wasn't for people who were super involved in grassroots efforts and knew exactly how the the state Democratic parties worked in conjunction with the National Democratic Party, and how they kind of like circumvent the system, the rules of the system by going through these super PACs. So that was a huge eye opener for us.
And it came up at the hearing, by the way. The judge was questioning.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's interesting.
Do the National Party give funding to the? Nah, they don't give funding to the parties.
What do you say?
Isn't it interesting how that was the first question coming?
Yeah, I'm 90% sure.
Sure.
Like you're 90% sure that the Democratic Party think
which means you could be wrong.
So I saw you sitting there in the audience, and it must have been interesting to hear that.
Hey, were you the ones that were making noises in the courtroom?
No, that was on the other side. Okay. Yeah, I was like, y'all gonna get chewed out by this guy. I can see it in their face. I can see it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they realized what they were doing though.
At least 2 to 3 people came forward privately and said, "I'm guilty. That was me. I'm sorry." But it couldn't all have been that.
Yeah, right. Because I don't think they realized how loud they were because if you're not used to the acoustics of a courtroom, you don't realize how much your voice echoes. But especially for the judge. Yeah, if you come to the next hearing, because that judge is not played.
No judge is pleased.
Yeah.
Just shh.
But anyway, getting back to the, we were talking about, and I think I interrupted you, Niko.
So we were accumulating this information. We're finding information out that Hillary, literally a PAC named Hillary Victory Fund, is giving money to this party, and then we're finding out information like, for example, in Vermont, a member of the Democratic Party, I think she was the chair of the Vermont Democratic Party, literally approved the Hillary Victory Fund funding before she ended up working with Bernie Sanders. We had another situation where a consultant who was a pro-Hillary Clinton consultant accepted $10,000 from a Hillary Clinton super PAC and then ended up on Bernie Sanders' campaign. Right. These were consistent patterns, and then when you recognize these types of patterns, you're like, okay, obviously something can be done about this. And that's when me and Jared put our heads together. It was like, oh shit, they're a corporation. Right. Let's sue their ass.
But let's not forget, and this is important. You can't just file a lawsuit on a hunch, and you can't file it. You've got the standard in federal court is that you have to have plausible allegations, that if proven will state a claim under the law. And in order to have plausible allegations, you want to have as much evidence as possible. And so we had a lot of inferences that we were drawing from facts that you had found on the ground as an organizer based on your investigation that you were working on out of our office. Based on, all of us, kind of putting pieces together. But what we didn't have what I like to think of as smoking guns. In other words, the internal documents that you need to really make a lawsuit stick. And if you're going to accuse an organization like the DNC of fraud and misrepresentation and everything else that we've claimed against the DNC in this case, you better have the evidence to back it up.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that smoking gun evidence until Guccifer started putting.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
That's what allowed us to file this case. So the seeds of the case were planted with your blowing the whistle and your initial investigation. But then I think of it almost, I'm not a religious person, but I think of it almost as the grace of God.
Yeah.
These documents.
Definitely some divine intervention.
Exactly. They came out into the public domain through Guccifer, and then of course through WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed us to file this case and to make very, very specific, detailed allegations of fraud that are all backed up by specific documentary evidence from the DNC's own files that have never been claimed to be inauthentic documents by the DNC.
It was actually the
and
opposite.
That's very, very, very important.
It was the opposite because, and this is so. At this point, we have before Gucci Free dropped, we were kind of like this. I guess it was this crossroads and it was a block. We knew, like, okay, obviously, they're favoring a particular candidate over another. We know this. This has happened. We want to do this, but we didn't. It's like Jared said, the standard in federal court, this probably wouldn't hold up yet. And then like a week later, I would say it seems like out of nowhere, like somebody was listening and they're like, "Hey, we got you, Jam Pack," and everything drops. Everything drops, and the most beautiful part is, I think the quote that I remember the most out of that entire situation was Colin Powell said, "There's more coming."
I mean,
that was it.
Right.
And then the Colin Powell documents dropped, and everything dropped. And I'm like, wow. So he just pretty much said all of these documents are authentic, and if they, even if they weren't authentic, and then of course we know WikiLeaks ended up dropping documents as well. Mm-hmm. Even if they weren't authentic, or if they weren't authentic, I would expect them to not say anything. But Colin Powell doesn't care about Hillary Clinton. Colin Powell has no dog in the fight at that point because he doesn't like Donald Trump. He doesn't like Hillary Clinton. And in fact, if you look at Colin Powell's record, it doesn't look like any type of career politician. Mm-hmm. And so when he comes out and says his documents and his email thread is real, that's a huge problem. Mm-hmm. They no longer can deny any of the documents because it's much easier to trace at that point. Yeah. So of course they haven't denied any of those documents are real. And then as far as Gucci first concerned, there's probably some angst about whether those would be administrable because those, for what we know, were hacked. Unless what he says about the source about
we don't know the full story on Guccifer. I know that there's been some investigation as to who exactly Guccifer is. There's some suggestion that he may those documents may have been leaked from the Democratic Party, and there was recently an analysis. I think it was up on was it Julian Assange or WikiLeaks had posted a tweet that linked to some really very interesting analysis as to where the Guccifer documents may have come from, whether or not that they may have come from the DNC itself as sort of an operation to try to discredit WikiLeaks down the road by tying it to the Russians even before WikiLeaks came out. So, there are a lot of theories out there.
I don't even think that they even talked about it. They just ignored it, right? They didn't even bring it up.
Who? This makes my head hurt.
Guccifer?
Guccifer, I feel like they ignored until...
They did. Right,
until the DNC convention.
Well, they tried to ignore as much as possible. It was only after WikiLeaks came out that Debbie Wasserman-Schultz stepped down. Yeah, and that's another important fact here in this whole saga is that don't lose sight of the fact that Debbie Wasserman-Schultz and the other officers of the DNC actually resigned in the wake of what came out. I think that speaks volumes about the authenticity of what came out.
Did she resign or did she get fired?
I think it's.
We should find that out.
I think it's a resign.
That's a deposition question.
I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pitched as she resigned or she stepped down under pressure, because who can? She's the CEO. I mean, she's the head.
Yeah.
So the head has to voluntarily resign. She's the leader.
Especially when I believe that I think there were some emails where she clearly showed bias as the head.
Absolutely.
Which anybody could have seen that.
She picked sides in the Nevada fight. Yeah. You're not supposed to pick sides. If you're impartial, this is what is so shocking about that transcript, Niko, and everybody out there is, and I know people have been making this point on Twitter and Facebook throughout the past couple of days, but the DNC's position is that there's no such thing as being impartial and even-handed. Such that we can.
Oh no! Remember they said, "How can we tell whether someone's being impartial?" Right. What? Like that's a super ridiculous existential question of what is impartiality? I was like, that's some shit you say when you're high. That's not a conversation you have in court.
You know what? That's like how you define an asshole. I mean, we all know what an asshole is.
Yeah, the definition of impartiality is inherent in the word. Like, you don't debate.
Well, you don't debate it with an Article 3 federal judge.
Here's the other thing.
Right.
I think that's a classic jury question.
No, I think it's beyond a jury question.
I think he was high.
I think it's common sense, and I think it's I don't think the jury has to decide that. I think the jury is going to decide whether or not there was fraud, whether or not there were false representations, and whether people lost money if we get to a jury trial. And again, we don't have an order yet. What we have is a transcript, and everybody, I just want to remind that.
That means they got what the judge said at the end?
Yes.
They got the quote? Oh,
Democracy demands the truth so that intelligent people can make intelligent decisions.
This is what the judge said at the end of the trial, or of the hearing, which is doesn't really bode well for the opposition. But we'll see.
Well, we'll see. You know, my take on that, and why that statement gives me hope. And you know, I have a lot of faith in our legal system. That's why I do what I do. Because I think it's the greatest legal system in the world.
Certain parts of our legal system.
Yeah, but I agree.
There's
It's
no
been
perfect system.
there's no perfect system.
I mean,
exactly.
It's been under a lot of stress.
You know, teachers teach, and they see problems within the school district. Doctors see problems in the healthcare industry.
Right.
They still do what they do. You know.
All of our systems in this country are under a lot of stress, and let's keep that in mind. What gives me faith is that I believe people are doing the best they can under very trying circumstances.
Yeah.
And what I took away from the judge's comment at the end was that, and I agree with it 100%, is that you know, the truth and democracy go hand in hand, and the jury trial is one of the most important features of our democracy. You know, you have basically a jury of peers decide disputes, and the jury is pulled from the people. Okay, it's not pulled from the corporations, it's not pulled from the 1%, it's pulled from the people. They're going to make the decision in this case if it goes to trial. And so that is so powerful, and I think it gets at the essence as to why the judiciary is a very, very vital part of democracy, and why this is one avenue among many avenues where the people are fighting back against a very corrupt system.
Yeah, I think that, and just because they brought up, you know, that everybody has their avenue into how you fight the corrupt system. Don't believe because you're not a lawyer, or you're not a high-paid political consultant, or you're not a super savvy, you know, political mind, that you can't affect the system in your own unique way. For me, because of the graces of Jared and Liz, I've been able to. I have my own. Obviously, you all know I have my own political show now. I'm on Awake Radio, iHeartRadio, all that.
Really?
Cool stuff. Yeah. I thought Liz, you already knew this.
No, I didn't.
She's a little out of the loop.
I've been under a rock.
We've literally been under a rock. But I know you've been really making great strides on your show, because you know, I make sure to check in and review the content. I just want to make this point. What Niko and what others who are doing what Niko's doing is so important right now to if I can continue this. Thank you.
We interrupt each other.
We do interrupt each other, but I don't want to forget what I'm saying here. This is so vital to democracy, okay, because this is what the First Amendment is all about, which is getting the truth out. And we live in a social media age which gives us so many tools to reach so many people. And we're very blessed to be living in that age, because we actually have the power to fight back against the corrupt mainstream media. And we're doing that. And we're getting the word out, and people are tuning out the mainstream media. And they're realizing that the mainstream media doesn't have good credibility because it's tied to the interests of the elite in this country. But we're circumventing that, and you're allowing us to circumvent that by building your audience and being the media and taking the media, and we can all be the media. You know, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, Elizabeth is on Twitter, Facebook. You know,
beware of the wrath. Beware of the wrath of Jared if you go on his Twitter. Don't come with no crazy stuff.
I mean,
Jared's known to get blocked.
Sometimes I'm in
by an elite or two.
Sometimes I'm actually very mild mannered in real life.
Sometimes I come across as a jerk on Twitter, but you know, like honestly, you know, that's just. You know, I figure that, you know, that's part of our discussion. It's good if things get heated. When I see the discussion heated, that makes me happy, because it's not people like hitting each other. Yeah. Okay, that's what makes me sad when I see violence in the streets. Okay, that's the direction I don't want this country to go in, and it makes me sad to see that. And when I see, you know, brutality in any form, and we're seeing so much of that these days in so many forms, whether it's with terrorism, police brutality, international stage, you name it, right?
It's important to be able to express your thoughts freely,
right.
regardless of whether your audience agrees with you or not. Otherwise,
in fact,
it comes out sideways.
I would even venture to say that it's important to express your thoughts, especially if the audience doesn't agree with you. And I'm going to explain to you all why. It's because, for those of you who follow my personal page, I just post a lot of controversial stuff for absolutely, I won't say no reason, but it seems probably to most people that I'm just trying to be, devil's advocate or an asshole, whichever one.
You're not an asshole.
I am. I'm okay with that, though.
You're not an asshole.
I know
assholes. You're not an asshole.
Right.
I know assholes. You're not an asshole.
But when I have these conversations, when I ask these questions, like for example, one of the biggest things I like to do is talk about vaccines because it's such a controversial issue. And I talk. The question I bring up the most is how can we expect the FDA? We talk about the FDA, especially on the progressive side, the liberal side, as this horrible entity that is passing medication that literally causes cancer, will kill somebody. They never get it right, it seems like, right? This isn't Advil we're talking about. We're talking about the big stuff that they consistently approve while simultaneously banning things that will heal cancer. Like there's a flower in Germany right now, a lot of people don't know about that. It's been banned by the FDA because it cures cancer. It kills cancerous cells. So like this is the same FDA that approves the general application of vaccines in this very broad spectrum of let's treat everybody the exact same way with the exact same medication with the exact same dose and expect absolutely no side effects that could be detrimental to the human race when people come from different backgrounds, religions, immunities, etc., etc. So at that point, because I don't really have
an anti-vax?
No, I don't have an extreme point.
No, I don't.
But it's a question that needs to be.
Can I say something? I think those labels are unhelpful. I think I think
that's very judgmental of you.
No, I think it's we have too much discourse in this society where people get labeled as and you saw this. I'm just using this as one example, and I don't want to I just want to kind of like make this point, but like. With the Jill Stein campaign, that was a label that was attached to her very early on as anti-vax. And hold on. So you can be very, very critical you can be very much in favor of vaccines, but you can also be critical of the way that the FDA approves vaccines. And when I see a lot of what gets put under the rubric of anti-vaxxer, which I consider to be a derogatory term, which is meant to like diminish a political position rather than taking it seriously. You see, what I think is a lot of people. That's people's anxiety coming out about how drugs are approved in this country, and they're seeing issues in their kids. There's no challenging the fact that rates of autism are on the rise in this country. I don't know the cause of that. I don't know whether that has to do with vaccines or not. I'm a proponent of vaccines. I mean, our kids are vaccinated. Hold on. But, but I think there needs to be a serious discussion about how drugs and vaccines are approved, because I think the way it's done now is,
very corrupt.
Exactly. All I know about the vaccination system is that if vaccinations hurt your child, you have no legal recourse.
Right.
Which is a
because
huge
there
problem.
has been a law that was passed that prevents you from suing the pharmaceutical companies that put out the vaccines that hurt your child.
But this isn't the case when it comes to pills. So why is it the case when it comes to vaccines?
Right. So there's
and then there's all kinds of legal doctrines that protect generics.
Right.
As opposed to a name brand, which is really ridiculous.
There's a lot of questions about how much the FDA has been overtaken by proponents of big pharma.
Yeah, of course.
Rather than proponents of public health.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, but the point of that though, having that conversation is to address the fact that people are scared to have that discussion, to have that dialogue. People are scared to draw parallels between one issue where they feel so strongly on and contrast that with another issue that they feel so strongly on really not accepting the fact that those two issues are directly linked, especially when you're talking about the pharmaceutical, big pharma and vaccines. Where do you think vaccines come from?
Yeah.
If you're gonna draw these arguments about pharmaceuticals and people are making money off of them and blah 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 blah, I don't think you understand how people get research grants. They get research grants by doing what they're told. I don't think you understand how people, like, you either get a research grant from the government, or by a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's true.
And at the end of the day, when you have a research department to fund, scholarships to hand out, jobs to create, your information is going to be skewed. I can't remember. I remember learning in psychology how many people thought that psychology was a joke because they thought it wasn't a real science. It delved even deeper into psychology. I remember when people thought that the IQ, the intelligence quotient, was the concrete way to measure somebody's potential for intelligence or their ability to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's almost laughed at in progressive circles. We know that there's a huge spectrum of intelligence that at this point I really don't think can be accurately measured.
I studied that.
Yeah, and so when you can't have these conversations, when you start throwing, you're an anti-vaxxer, like they called Jill an anti-vaxxer because she said.
I was just giving you grief.
No. I'm just saying, like when.
No, but race is an important.
Yeah, like when you're saying, oh, we should make sure that we keep checking on scientists, because any scientist, and I'm telling you this is a personal quote, any scientist who tells you we shouldn't question that, we've done the research, it's perfectly fine. They're not a scientist. That's not what scientists do. Scientists, even when something seems to be perfected, they go on and continue the research to disprove that perfection. That is what scientists do. That's what they're paid for. But we have reached the era where I think we seriously underestimate what big money has done to society in general, and to things like the FDA. You're talking taxes, transportation, everything. Big money has sunk its claws into almost every facet of our society, and we think it only has to do it with oil and gas and pharmaceuticals and things like that. But it's much deeper,
right?
And it's not hard to trace the depth. So that's why we have to have these conversations. Right. That's why it's so important, on social media for us to argue, because it's not really the person you're arguing with. You're not going to be able to change their mind 9 out of 10 times. But the truth of the matter is, there are probably 100 other people watching that are being educated by the conversation that you are having.
Exactly.
And they may be not confrontational on social media, but when they're having conversations with their friends, their family, their coworkers, they're going to take the information that you provided, the analysis that you provided, a different perspective that they may have not had before, angle they may have not thought about before, and bring that into their conversation.
So let me just I just thought of something.
Anti-vaxxer?
No, I'm not anti-vaxxer.
So can I just make one point here, because everything you said there, Niko, was very powerful, and I think it gets at just the power of social media and the tools that we have in our possession. Sometimes it's easy to feel very disempowered because the forces that are aligned against us are so big and so entrenched and so overwhelming. But actually, we have extraordinary...
But not without weakness.
Yes, but we have extraordinary power at our disposal, precisely because of the social media dynamic that you're talking about. But we also have the ability to start really putting pressure on the mainstream media, and I think we all have to start doing that as much as possible. And I can think of one example just off the top of my head. Again, there's been a total blackout here of the DNC fraud lawsuit. But, for example, can I just, please, I don't want to get off track here. Okay, then you can go. By the way, Elizabeth and I are married, for those of you who don't know, so sometimes we interrupt each other. I just want to make this one point, and then I'll let Elizabeth say what popped into her head. But anyway, so it was occurring to me, I used to be a big NPR listener, okay? I used to get a lot of news from NPR. I thought of them as, a fairly good, objective news source. That's totally changed, 360 degrees, okay, or 180 degrees, or whatever you want to call it. I was just so shocked with their biased coverage during the primaries, during the general election. I think they've gotten a little bit better post-election. They've calmed down a little bit, but I was just shocked. It really just shocked me just how poor their coverage was. But they have call-in shows. Okay,
Yeah.
you can call NPR, and you can and ask questions of their hosts. So there's the show in the morning, like A1A, which I think took over for the Diane Reed show that I've heard a few times now, and the host. I'm not trying to plug them or anything, but what I'm suggesting is, for all of you out there that are thinking, how do we cut through the mainstream media? There's ways of doing it. One thing is call those shows. Howard Stern, used to, God bless him, when he was at his height, he had like an army of people that would call in. You remember Howard Stern?
Oh, yeah, no, I remember.
He would have these people call in with Baba Booey and all that. Wait. He would call in with this Baba Booey routine, and he would basically disrupt the mainstream media. That's what we have to do.
Aren't people dialing in to hear about the lawsuit? Why are we talking about Baba
Well, I'm
Booey?
talking about right now. But you actually missed what I was saying, which is that people can call in to these shows. Okay, like whether it's like A1A
Maybe
or
we
any
should
other
take questions from the audience.
Whatever. It's Niko's show. It's not our show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If Niko doesn't want to,
Dang, Liz.
if Niko doesn't want to take anyone's questions, he doesn't have to take
We're gonna
anyone's
get there.
questions.
This is supposed to be.
It's
we're
his.
supposed to
It's
be
his
showing
show.
how
You gotta
networking
let Niko run his
and
show.
talking
Right.
to anybody and everybody,
Yeah.
can drastically affect. Obviously,
Right.
you can
I'm
do
just
something
saying,
like create the most.
call
Have another beer.
Call up NPR, call up these shows and ask them why they're not covering the DNC lawsuit. Tell them about the transcript. Call up C-SPAN. There's another network that has call-in shows. We can get
Maybe
there.
they're exercising.
Elizabeth,
Maybe they're exercising their constitutional right against self-incrimination.
Then make them answer the question on
I don't
the
think
air.
they're attorneys. They're
No.
probably not.
These are human. These are run by human beings. These are
Yeah.
these organizations. They operate according to certain logics, but they're run by human beings. You can reach them. You can call them and get on the air. I'm just giving people ideas. Elizabeth had. She was on CNN during the Bernie campaign, and they wanted her to basically get on there and talk about her famous episode with Donald Trump. She got on there and she basically had her Bernie shirt on, and she was trying to disrupt CNN's agenda to basically get Bernie into the mainstream media. And she
all they wanted to talk about was Trump,
because all they wanted to do was talk to you about Trump, right? Remember that?
I vaguely remember that.
Vaguely remember going to New York and getting on CNN when you're too important
Anyway,
for your own
that
good.
was the only point I wanted to make.
Now, you know what? CNN has such incredibly high overhead.
Right.
Like prime Manhattan real estate. They're in this high rise. I'm like, I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
I mean,
competing.
no, it's just their overhead is just so high. And all people want is the news. They don't.
No, not anymore. People want you to agree with them.
They want entertainment.
Yeah, exactly.
They're in the entertainment business. Okay.
CNN's converted.
And right now they're trying to
What do I
basically
know?
create the impression that we're headed towards a nuclear war, because that's like the ultimate political entertainment.
So, fun facts for those of you who don't know. I am prior service. I have a lot of friends in the intelligence branch of the military still.
Mm-hmm.
The things that are happening right now, for the most part, aren't out of character. I don't know if you all remember this, but North Korea tries a new missile once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to do with Donald Trump. The Russian boats, or the Russian submarines that appear to be circling near our ships, they literally do this all of the time. This is not new. It's not news either. If you ask anybody in the Navy, they will tell you this. They kind of like, I don't know what you want to call it, a pissing contest, but this is something that's gone on since the Cold War.
Yeah.
They keep each other in check. It's this sensationalism essentially, and when there's nothing else to talk about,
Right.
they're going to talk about it. Like, especially when you're considering the fact that they're trying to push the agenda that Russia is this. Obviously Putin is the most sophisticated election hacker in the history of the world. Like, they knew apparently about him hacking the election, but with the CIA, the FBI, and all the other intelligence agencies combined, they did absolutely nothing or couldn't do anything to stop it, which is obviously I don't believe. I think he just really wasn't that involved. But yeah, we really have to take control. And with the DNC lawsuit, that's another example of just, do not underestimate how serious this is, because you don't see on, because we did see on CNN once before, I believe, and it was just merely to discredit us. right? Pretty much they were saying that there's nothing to worry about.
The DNC lawsuit, there's only been one example in the mainstream media that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
Wall Street Journal.
Is the Wall Street Journal published a short article right before the convention, or actually during the convention, or maybe the day before,
I remember.
when we were in Philly. And I remember when Elizabeth...
You were in that house.
Yeah,
And
we
then when
were.
they
We were
called.
all, we all had a
An Airbnb.
We rented an Airbnb and had a bunch of folks.
It's like 10 people in a house.
Yeah, it was cramped, but you know what?
Oh, man.
We're-
We made it work.
We made it work, but
We sure
I
did.
remember, Elizabeth, you were interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. My personal view on that is that perhaps the Wall Street Journal was trying, as a more conservative paper, to create some chaos right before the Democratic convention, so
I
they
don't
felt
know.
that it was in their interest to cover the story. We haven't had a single mainstream media mention since then. So all of our coverage has been in, for lack of a better term, the alt-left.
But you know what the crazy thing
the
is?
alt-left or
It's-
grassroots.
But the crazy thing
media.
is, we've been covered in the alternative press, but from all political spectrum.
Yeah, right, left, and
Yeah.
I think what's
That's
interesting
Yeah.
is it's now, mind you, we're suing the DNC, and we're at a point where you're talking about a huge tipping point. The people that could be involved, like if we get past this motion and we get to move forward, the people that are going to be questioned and disposed, oh my God.
Remember,
You're talking about like this is going to be a superstar lineup of corruption.
Look, this lawsuit has been covered by Inquisitor and the Young Turks.
Yeah.
To me, that says that this lawsuit is a
You
lawsuit.
mean Breitbart?
No, the Inquisitor covered it recently.
Well,
Yeah, the
Bright-
Inquisitor
and
covered it.
Breitbart, yeah.
Breitbart covered us in the beginning.
And the Young
Observer.
Turks.
Yeah, and the Observer.
And the Observer and the
Yeah.
Progressive Alliance. So to
So
me,
on the right, on the left.
yes. So it's to me that
I
says
mean,
that
in
it's,
a lot of ways, the alt-left and the alt-right, have a lot of overlap. I think,
Well, I don't
What
think
they
they're
discussed for
corporate.
the
I don't think
establishment,
they're. I
yeah.
don't think they're corporate funded.
Well,
I
That's
think Breitbart is.
some of them are, some of them are. I mean, but I'm talking like the grassroots alt-right,
Yeah.
You see a lot of, you're seeing a lot of convergence in terms of what people want. I think there's, whether you're on the alt-left or the alt-right, there is a shared concern with corruption in government.
Yeah.
And this lawsuit gets at corruption in government from the angle of the corruption
We've
of the DNC.
heard how much about the lawsuits about Donald Trump. I'm sure that some of them have some type of legitimacy, but they often seem to be going nowhere. None of them have gone anywhere.
Lawsuits against Trump.
Yeah, all his pedophile lawsuits.
Well, there was one filed recently. Well, yeah.
You gotta hire good lawyers.
But the DNC haven't done that either. But
Well, some of those lawsuits against Trump are, by the way, I would call them corporate funded.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't
There's
follow
one
that.
recently that seeks to hold him responsible under the emoluments clause because he shouldn't be profiting from his business. But I think my understanding is the organization behind that is actually we're talking your typical Soros connected super PACs are funding that stuff.
exactly.
Whereas this lawsuit, I can assure you, this lawsuit is being funded and
It's being funded by our savings.
no. It's being
That's
funded
fine, which
like we
is fine.
file all of our contingency
That's right.
lawsuits, which is that
That's
we
right.
front the cost
That's right.
as
Which
a
is
law
the way,
firm.
Which is the way all
And there's
contingency-
no greater interest behind this.
That's the way
There's
all
no Soros
contingents-
super PAC. There's no. Let me just finish, Elizabeth. I want to just get out what I'm saying. Because I think it's important for people to hear this. There's no entity behind this or corporate interest of any kind. Okay, we are litigating this like we litigate all of our cases. We have many, many, many cases that we've litigated where we've gotten recoveries for in fraud claims for people who've been defrauded by private corporations or individuals or what have you. This is no different. We're approaching this the very same way. So, I think that's, honestly, the legal system does best when you just litigate your case and you have faith in the system. That's what we're doing here.
You're saying about contingency?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the way all contingency lawyers work. Is
Right.
you only get paid when the clients win, but you also front the costs. So,
Right.
in case anybody was wondering,
Yeah.
Right.
So
we're
we
not.
just-
The costs are not being fronted by any,
Yeah.
weird.
And there are other attorneys involved in this. So essentially,
Right.
when Jared Elizabeth is
Yeah.
fronting the cost, they're fronting the cost, and they are the ones who take the hit.
With their co-counsel too.
Yeah, there's absolutely no guarantee that what they're investing in for essentially for this country at this point, and even in me at this point, there's no guarantee that they will ever receive any type of restitution for that. So I think it's important. What's up, Liz?
A for effort.
Yeah, A for effort. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay the bills for some people, which is why we're doing this too. Because your money is valuable to us.
Right.
Your time, especially because as people, as a grassroots activist myself, grassroots super PAC, your time is extremely valuable. It's valuable to us.
Oh, it's always nice having you over, though.
Yeah, we have a good time. We have some good conversations.
Yeah.
But,
okay, so remember I had to be like that mean woman and lay down the law and say that the two of you had to stop calling each other because you were actually talking so much and neither of you was getting any work done.
Yeah, Jared and I will wake up in the morning and
so I was like,
talk. We'll talk for hours.
Like, the two of you need to stop contacting each other because you're both actually not being productive. Remember that?
Yeah, we literally will sit there.
Are you gonna finish that?
What?
Here, I'm gonna finish that.
No, sorry. Okay. But we usually talk for hours about, and all we do is talk about ways to get rid of corruption a lot of the times and fix the system. And Liz chimes in too to
I just like to throw peanuts from the side.
Liz is your classic devil's advocate who also just comes in to throw, like she said, throw peanuts. But nah,
Hey, did you know that I went to a reception?
A wedding reception?
It's called a Red Mass. It's for Catholic lawyers, and I was trying to behave, and I was asking a question to the Archbishop.
Trying to behave?
I was trying to behave, and I just posed and the people next to me were egging me on. They're like, ask him that question. Ask the Archbishop that question. So I asked the Archbishop that question, and he was on his second whiskey on the rocks. He called it his tea. He said, "It's my tea."
Whiskey with tea is very good, though.
No, it wasn't tea.
No, I'm just saying.
But he was like, you know what? He was probably thinking, you know what? I don't want to deal with this crap. So he actually sent one of his priests over to the archdiocese's lawyer to tell me to stop asking my questions.
What was the question? The
question was, okay, so this is very interesting. So this was a Red Mass put out by the St. Thomas More Society. And for those of you who don't know, so I don't know if you know, but St. Thomas More was this dude in England who had his head chopped off by Henry VIII because he followed God's law above man-made law, right?
Okay.
So he was a man of great conscience. So the question that I posed to the Archbishop was, Archbishop, and and he was a lawyer, by the way. St. Thomas More was a lawyer.
Oh.
So the question I posed to the Archbishop was, Your Excellency, if you are a judge or a prosecutor and you're Catholic, how do you impose the death penalty?
Oh, snaps.
Right?
What did he say?
He didn't really give a straight answer. But I asked him.
So not only is he a judge and an archbishop, but a politician as well.
I guess. But I said, so if you're a doctor and a patient asks you to do an abortion, what do you do? And he was very adamant that in that case, the doctor should absolutely not do the abortion. So my question is, if you're very adamant in that position, should a judge or a prosecutor not be equally adamant in not imposing the death penalty because all life has valuable and has dignity? And he sent one of his priests to talk to the lawyer for the archdiocese, who came over and said, the Archbishop would like to have this conversation in private. And I just shut up.
Politics never leaves, guys. Even
I just shut up
meetings.
At that point.
But
what? I don't know.
To get back to get
Sorry.
back to this. Oh no.
Have your pizza.
I can't. I don't eat mushrooms.
Oh, pick them out.
I will pick them out.
You want me to pick them out for you?
No, it's okay.
I'll pick them out for you.
But it's the lawsuit for us is not something Like, we obviously want to win, but it's really more because of what a victory means for all of us, which is that, for one, you all get restitution, which is a huge thing because, like I said, your money and your time is valuable to us. But in the long run, the political victories surrounding this are just monumental, which is why, Jerry, if you want to cover it in more detail, which is why the judge is taking this case so seriously. And some people we know that you all want to know the results of the motion, and we keep hearing about it. Right. He's going to take his time because he wants to make sure he gets it right. And as Jared told me, the longer he takes deliberating this discussion, the more detail that he covers the reason for his decisioning, and limits the opportunity to go to the Supreme Court. And we do not want that. As crazy as that sounds, it gets too political when you get to the Supreme Court.
So that's I think that's a really important point, and I'll just address that, and then I'm going to have to run and put the kids to bed because they're still up and they shouldn't be.
It's about that time.
They've been up a little too long, but
taking advantage of a situation.
And
right now.
Unfortunately, we've been, it's, when you do these things, we have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I think it's really important, and I know everybody out there who's watching this, all of us are making huge sacrifices for what's going on. We all, we've got, our day jobs, we've got our families, and, the political situation is such that even if you're just following politics at a high level,
it makes you depressed.
It makes you depressed, and you're also making a sacrifice of your energy. Yeah. And that's not how a good political system is supposed to run. Elizabeth, I think you brought this point up the other day.
No, I didn't. You brought it up.
Well, we were talking, and
you brought it up.
I think we were having a conversation, and you mentioned that a good political system, you shouldn't notice that a good political...
Okay, let me tell you something. Niko, do you get together with your friends and debate who's taking over, the local utility company?
Yeah.
Oh, nowadays we do. See, that's a bad example. But you should.
My friends are...
No, it should be more like let me tell you something. In a country where the political scene is not, the politics is running well, people should not be, obsessed with what's going on in government.
Exactly.
The conversations we should be having right now should be very super technical conversations about very serious problems that are affecting us, like income inequality, the environment. We should be having very specific policy discussions about how we're going to address those things.
Yeah, and the only disagreement should be how we're going to address it, not whether we should or not.
Right, and instead we're screaming at each other. We're the media is creating hysteria. Everything is about just this horrible rhetoric, and we're not actually having serious discussions. Okay, and that's a sign of how dysfunctional our government is. So one of the things, and I'll just want to get back to this before I leave, and again, I got to put the kids to bed, and so I'll be signing off after this. But again, this has been a really awesome discussion. I hope we can do this again soon.
Yeah, definitely.
But what makes me very, very gives me a lot of hope with the DNC case is that the hearing was a very, very serious discussion about a specific aspect of our corrupt government in a federal forum, and that I think gives me a lot of hope, because I want that those are the kind of discussions we need to have in government at every level, the state level, federal level, all branches. We need to have serious discussions about how we're going to fix the big problems in this country, and so this is a great start. Obviously, we're going to have to do what we can to take our government back as a people, but there's still hope, and I think we have, again,
there's always hope.
I'm speaking as a lawyer. I have a lot of faith in aspects, in our judicial system. I know that it's not a perfect judicial system. I know that, there's been some high-profile disappointments lately, but as a lawyer who's been practicing in it, in all different areas, I have a lot of faith, and I think we can get where we need to go in this lawsuit.
Yeah, and from my personal perspective, a lot has had to happen by chance, quote unquote, for this to come into fruition at this point. A lot of faith has had to be put in a lot,
Right.
And it's every time we thought, okay, this is going to be a significant roadblock, things work out.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, something's got to give. And as you all know, I'm not a religious person, but I am a very spiritual person. And I do believe, and you know, at this point, the soul has been quantified. You should look that up if you haven't. The soul has been quantified. These are things, it's this energy that we put towards this stuff. It's extremely important. You know, things don't work out by chance.
Right.
Lucifer 2.0 probably had some type of self-interest to be fulfilled, knowing, okay, if I release this information, I'll be a superstar.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
but the only way he would know that information was even necessary to be released is if we were so impassioned by what was happening in that campaign that he would even get any type of recognition off of it.
Yeah, and just to build on that, you know we were talking earlier about the transcript. You know, the very last words of the judge before he, went back into his chambers after hearing was that, democracy demands the truth because people need to make intelligent decisions. Okay, and so then we think about, well, who has allowed us to get the truth so far in this whole saga? Well, Lucifer, WikiLeaks. What has allowed them to disseminate the truth? You know, the internet, right? What has allowed internet to disseminate the truth widely? Social media. What are we doing right now? Social media. So we're engaged in that process. And I think, we're just going to have to continue to have faith in the process, and take faith and comfort in what the judge has said, and just, look forward to the next step. And that's one of my kids at the door. So I'm going to try to intercept her, and then you guys can, maybe bring it home. You guys bring it home.
She has that glint in her eye. Like, what's going on back there?
Just to finish out, we want to continue to dedicate this energy that we've been able to create and carry it forward. And every time we're blocked by mainstream media, or we're blocked by one of these, political talking heads, then that should encourage you to move even further and more aggressively forward. What's up, Vesper? How are you?
All right, so here's the thing. If you see yourself on that screen,
say hi to Vesper, everybody.
Oh well.
Somebody figure out how pretty they are.
What is it?
Well, this is called the live stream, and Niko is at our house, and he's doing an interview.
But what's the interview?
Oh, that's
that's when
I asked your mom and dad a lot of questions.
That's when
about
people
their
ask
job.
questions and people give
Mommy,
answers.
why are there hearts?
Because they love you. That's what that says. They love you. They think you're pretty. Whenever you see the hearts or the blue circle, it means they like you. But it's time for Vesper to go to bed.
What's the There's too many.
That means they really like you, actually. But yeah, you want to continue to take this energy and just keep pushing it aggressively towards our final goal. And like I said, with Liz and Jared, they're conducting this lawsuit. Myself, obviously, I'm an activist. I have my own radio show, and we're telling the truth. Where others are super connected in activism and setting up marches and awareness and education. And there is something for you to do. And continue to look for that thing and just continue to just put your energy into it. Because at this very moment, we don't know if we're going to have a system for Vesper to live in at the... that we're going to have a system for Vesper to live in.
Niko's giving a speech.
By the end of this decade. Okay? And this is so the energy that you're giving is a huge sacrifice, and we completely understand that. But without all of the energy that we've received thus far, we wouldn't even have a lawsuit to stand on. We wouldn't be able to do a class action. We didn't expect what you had how many people the first day we announced the lawsuit?
I don't know.
Too many. It was not too many, but it was a lot.
So I owe an apology to all the people that sent in their contact information to get on the email updates. I am working on that, so I thank you for your patience. I will start to send out email updates soon.
Yeah, they do pretty much everything themselves. They don't have a bunch of secretaries around. They have one assistant who's already busy enough as it is, and so.
I fixed an iPad. I can do a lot of things by myself.
You just got an iPad?
I just need Amazon and Home Depot. And I'm good to go.
That was not a. That was not any. There's no sponsorship. It wasn't an ad.
No
It wasn't an ad.
No sponsorship. I actually like Lowe's better than Home Depot, but
Oh God, that's an ad, Liz.
I'm sorry.
But
I mean,
anyway.
I do a lot of do-it-yourself stuff at home.
She does. When Liz gets frustrated, she starts doing housework.
I got like power tools, yo. Honey, don't show your underwear on the internet.
But yeah, so please continue to do what you can to contribute to the progressive causes. Like the page if you haven't liked my page. They have a page too called Jam Pack. And I will also tag Liz and Jared in this video. Please follow them. You know, they are always tweeting and Facebooking and things like that. They're also pretty prominent personalities on social media as well. So they're always arguing. So arguing is really quick, a really quick way to become popular on social media. And I will also post a Patreon account in my comments section, so that you all, if you feel feel the want to, can donate, so we can continue to evolve the show, buy better equipment and things like that. I will be announcing the new time for my show because my job won't allow me to do Fridays at 7 anymore. So I'm going to talk to the producer, and then we're going to come up with a new time for the show next week. But Liz, you have something you want to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, people ask how they can help. What you can do is follow the lawsuit, but you can also support independent media. As you can see, the mainstream media is not covering this lawsuit, even though a lot of people are interested in updates. So you can support your local independent media like Niko, and there's a lot of other media out there, because they are, they're not running on corporate sponsorships. So
Nope.
it's very important.
I'm broke.
It's very important that the public keeps them going.
Yeah.
To bring you the information that you need,
Yeah, and I'll post all that information. For those of you who are on my page right now, the Patreon link is at the top of the page, but I'll also post another one in the group. Any other information do we have an estimate, or did they even give any kind of estimate how long it will take for them?
I've stopped trying to predict lawsuits.
Well, that's from a professional right there. Yeah, you'd be surprised how they're working on like suits from like a year, 2 years ago. A lot of the time, and this is a significant lawsuit that can diametrically change the face of all politics as we know it. So God knows how much it take. But our goal is we're going to try to get this done before 2020. Because this is a big deal. Whether it will happen or not will be up to the judge. But we're going to try to keep our hopes alive and keep positive, because our positivity has gotten us a long way thus far. And even with Bernie Sanders, for example, a lot of us thought he lost. Next thing we know, the DNC is paying for him to go on tour, and they don't even realize it. So
I heard a bird shed on Tom Perez. Is that true?
It is very true. Yes, on Earth Day, which is the total opposite of what happened with Bernie Sanders, where the bird landed on the podium. I know, it's beautifully ironic. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Tune in for more updates and things like that about the lawsuit and other major political events. I'm going to be doing an interview with Sam Roden later on this week. I'm supposed to be touching base with Tim Black. We're going to do a show together as well. And then me and Liz and Jared will update you further once we get more information. So, that being said, thank you all for watching, and have a fantastic evening.